ferrying a DC3 from New Zealand to Australia, and the GA transition course. What's it all about? Why am I doing it? And do you need it? All that and more coming right up. So strap in and let's get into it.
Good morning, 7614, Alpha Mallow 7 POB with Alpha.
Coordinating, Halo and Runner, bank, balance, back pressure rolling to 30 degrees. That's 30 degrees there. Stand by, start 9000, 1013, K5 25.
G'day everyone and welcome to episode 159 of the Flight Training Australia podcast. From Matamata to Auckland, to Norfolk Island, to Sydney, to Essendon, and everywhere in between. This is the podcast all about flight training and flying in Australia and beyond. G'day, I'm your host, Trent Robinson, and thank you for joining me for another episode. Well, as you can tell by the little subtle change in the start sequence there, the beautiful roar of the DC3, a sound that I just love and still, even after the number of engine starts and the hours spent in it, I'm not sick of it yet. If you don't know what I'm talking about and you haven't been following me on social media, I had the absolute honor and privilege to share with some other great aviators a trip to New Zealand just this last week to train in and fly a DC3 throughout New Zealand. It was just a fantastic time, met some fantastic people, and we then had the privilege of flying that aircraft back across the Trans-Tasman route from New Zealand to Norfolk Island, into Sydney, and then down to Essendon. I'm not going to wrap up the whole trip here now. I'm going to go through it in detail because I want to take you through all of it. And I'll probably do that with Dan and one or two of the other guys maybe. And we'll get to do that over the next week or two as soon as we can. But look, as you would, you'd be able to tell from the photos and the videos and things I posted. It's a DC3. It is the most iconic aircraft, I think, in aviation, just about. It's got to be in the top 5. And, just to get the chance to fly it, to fly in it. Even the first day, doing the final flight of Chatham Air's last joy flights with the staff, and just pinching myself with Dan and the others, looking out the window at the stunning New Zealand landscape and throughout Auckland, and just pinching ourselves, going, man, we're in a DC3. This is so cool. So I can tell you now, when it all eventually comes together, the aircraft will be operated through Goonie Bird Adventures out of Darwin, and we'll be doing adventure scenic flights throughout the Tiwi Islands and then back down through Darwin at sunset. It's going to be absolutely spectacular, and I can tell you the aircraft just lights up stunningly in the sunset and in the sunrise. You'll see the aircraft operating over Thursday, Friday or Saturdays as booked, and it'll make a stunning addition to the Darwin skyline. So we'll definitely cover the whole trip and everything that happened there, talk about all that. But in the meantime, follow the Facebook page. You'll see some more great photos and footage from the trip over the coming weeks and months. I'm sure there's so much of it. And hopefully one day we'll be able to share the magic with you on board in Darwin sometime. But if you do have questions, feel free to fire them through. Some I can't answer just yet, but definitely watch this space and things will happen, and I'll tell you as soon as I know what's going on and allowed to tell you and update you all. All right. The GA transition course, or GA ready course as it's also known. I've been getting a lot of emails and messages from people just talking about it, asking about it, and a lot of confusion. I know when people post online and talk about it, everyone says it's a waste of money and getting ripped off and you don't need that and blah, blah, blah. So I just want to set the record straight and explain what it is and why it's there. And to the comment that often comes up that you don't need that, I really Couldn't agree more. You shouldn't need it. You have, for the best part, paid a lot of money to get a commercial pilot's license. However, somewhere along the line, over the last 10, 15 years, the concept of commercial pilot training seems to have slipped. And we are not producing a competent, well-rounded pilot who can enact the qualifications that they have throughout the myriad of possible commercial pilot tasks they may be presented with. There are all sorts of commercial pilot roles in all different locations in all different kinds of aircraft. And that's not what commercial pilot training is meant to be. You can't possibly cover all that, but it can absolutely lay the concepts, the foundations to then apply to all these different facets of our industry. And I 100% received that training back in the 90s and produced that training when I had the privilege of doing commercial training. We would do day trips where we'd link 2 or 3 navs together, do an overnight sometimes, go to different places, get different experiences, run scenarios, all that sort of thing. But the more I am now running this course and now constantly changing it to try and cater for the common denominator of what I keep seeing, it just drives me nuts, actually, to see commercial pilots come up to Darwin and struggle so much when they need not do so. They shouldn't be having these problems. And it's not because they're dumb. It's not because they're not capable. They are, I can see that. They are more than capable, but they have not been taught the basics. Now, as you know, through Create Better Pilots with Paul Strike, we are working on that, and others are now jumping on board to help with that process. And there will be more webinars and a 1 to 2 day seminar running later in the year, which we're planning. And there'll be more updates on that, where we want to get who's and hofos from all over Australia together and really start attacking this problem head on. But that's another podcast and another discussion. But what we need to do is work out why students are graduating without these core fundamental skills. And there's nothing I can do about that right now, but this is why the GA transition course exists. And I've called it the GA transition course not to try and be clever or different or anything, but because the biggest thing right now really is the transition from a flight school mentality and how flight schools handle commercial training to transition to the reality of flying in a GA work environment. They're very different. Talking about last episode, 158, where I discussed decision-making processes and teaching decision-making, this is a big one still. All right, so I've talked about all that. That's definitely something that needs to be addressed. But when you look at the course outline that I have, when I'm talking about how to put together a flight plan, how to put together weight and balance, how to make a radio call, how to fly an aeroplane, the different little things that I keep seeing over and over and over, it's too much to be a coincidence. And as I keep mentioning, sorry to keep hammering on about it, but flight schools from all over Australia, I get to see the product of. And the most part, it's the same. Now, and I'm not talking about when people just make mistakes, all right? That's just silly to try and make a big song and dance about that. I am talking about common issues. I'm talking about the frustrations of hofos who are having to fail people in line training for things like not using their rudder, not being able to maintain height, not being able to keep an aircraft straight on a runway. That's PPL stuff. That's RPL stuff even. All right. These are not things people should be failing line training for, yet it is happening all the time. I have several calls asking me to help someone, to give them a final chance that maybe I can crack the nut and figure out what's going on, because again, I've got more experience instructing and I might be able to see what the problem is. And often I can, but sometimes it's too little too late. So the GA transition course is for anyone who has come from a flight school background that has been not really delivered by instructors who have commercial experience and are seeking a chance to hone their skills, in the 210. The 206 is also available, but generally the 210, and to make sure that they are ready for when they get the call to attend a job interview. You remember a few episodes ago, I talked about what line training is. And you cannot be planting an aeroplane onto the runway when you've got passengers on board. The GA transition course is the opportunity to sort that crap out, to learn how to fly the aeroplane, to fly it smoothly, to fly it coordinated, so that you are in a position to do a good job on a job interview check flight and then commence line training with real passengers on board. Now, a lot of people think they don't need it and they go, I just want to go for a fly. That's not a problem. I'm more than happy to do that. But it will become very apparent very quickly that when we still are on the ground 2-3 hours later, because of all the issues that they don't know how to do things, not thinking about the big picture, that they're going to need more. And the problem with that is I probably won't be able to fit you in again for some weeks' time. So the GA transition course, it covers everything from showing up, having your iPad ready, your charts, NAIPS passwords, silly things that I shouldn't have to tell people, but it's all in there. I'll cover it quickly. I'll cover it in depth. It goes up and down and changes with who I've got on board. I'll have a couple together at a time. So I usually try and do 2 at a time and rotate the flying. There's backseat opportunities. And when you get that chance to backseat, it's not a chance to sit in the back and go for a scenic flight and get some Instagram footage. By all means do that, of course. It's exciting. This is part of your journey, and I encourage you to document it. But when I'm talking, pay attention, because to make the same mistake when you get to go flying, when it's your turn, is crazy. All right. And this will happen in employers as well. If there's a job to be done, then it's expected that you do it. And if you don't want to listen and take the advice and take the information that's coming and then make the same mistakes yourself, then you could be putting your job opportunity on the chopping block. So please don't do that. Take full advantage of everything that is offered. Take the aircraft for a fly. Do the ground course. It includes LASO, flight planning, local area, airspace, commercial operations. I'll introduce you to some of the HOFOs when we're walking around the apron, to some of the other pilots. You'll get to have a look at some of the aircraft. We can go see the Air Traffic Control Center, talk to everyone, the guys and girls up in the tower, and approach departures, all that sort of thing. There's a heap of opportunities there to just get to know the place a bit better and see if Darwin is for you as well. And, of course, it doesn't have to be Darwin. Once you finish the training, this will help you with anywhere, really, anywhere that you're seeking employment. But there are a lot of employers who are happy to take graduates from the course. I will make one disclaimer, however. I will not guarantee you a job if you show up and do the course. I cannot do that. What I can do is if you've performed well, I can put in a good word for you, but the rest is going to be always up to you. And we will cover that also. We'll cover resume writing, interview techniques. Every time I ask questions, everybody gets completely stumped and not thinking that that would have been a possible question they'd be asked. Remembering what an interview is all about is for the employer to get to know a little bit about you and who you are. So all that is covered, and anywhere up to 5 hours of flying. There's no lock-in amount. Everyone just does what they need to be job ready and good to go. So that is the plan. What I do strongly recommend is do not show up, or don't book me and show up unprepared and not current. Because what I'll end up having to do for the first 2 to 3 hours is teach you how to fly again when you're there for me to teach you how to be a proper commercial pilot in a GA environment. So make sure you jump into 172 or something, get yourself current. Don't waste my time. Don't waste your time and the opportunity to go flying, because all you're doing is giving me your money, and that's not serving you well at all. It is expensive. I know you've worked hard for that money. Put it to the best possible use you can to get the most out of it. And those that do will thrive, and they will be successful and get work. All right, guys. So that is what it's all about. And hopefully my tone wasn't too, I don't know what it was, but I just can't stand seeing people suffer needlessly. And I will always help and do whatever I can, but please have the maturity to take things into your control and be as prepared and ready as you can, and you will succeed. All right, that's all for today. Have a absolutely fantastic week. There'll be more information and updates coming about the DC3 and everything else I'm doing as well on social media. So make sure you follow me on Instagram and Facebook. And for those who, again, on Patreon, thank you for subscribing and thank you for supporting the work I do. If you're getting fantastic value out of these podcasts and want to hear more and see more on Instagram and YouTube, etc., then please consider coming on board as a Patreon member. And there's 3 different levels of membership for less than a coffee a week to, coffee a month to, more. And all of that goes towards the production costs and the time putting into these episodes and future projects. Well, legends, have a wonderful week. As I said, please be safe and remember the golden rule. Aviate, navigate, communicate. Cheers, everyone.